So this is going to be a run through of Hacks in the Dark, and we need to begin by defining why my hacker, or I'm playing a hacker. Why is my hacker doing the things it's doing? What is its need? And that's something in the rule book. It's the hacker's need. What is it trying to fulfill? Why is it trying to develop these hacks and intrusions into people's systems? So to do that, we roll. Well, you can roll a dice, or you can choose one. Think of your own. But I think for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to choose one at random. So let's pick up the D12. Where's the D12 gone? Zoom in a bit. I think it's that one, is it? Is that a D12? And I've got a 10, so let me have a look at my rule book and see what that comes up. So my need power is returned to the people. So that's got me thinking already. So my hacker has it in his head that he wants to somehow return power to the people. So that's telling me already, well, who has the power and who do we need to get it back from? So already thinking of ideas. And then we need to so the point of this game is we're building this hacker's manifesto, and we're going to be writing that on paper. You can't hack paper, or it's very difficult to, without stealing it or getting it out of the dead cold hands of my hacker. So on my manifesto of how I'm going to return power to the people, we need to come up with a hacker's name. And we also need to come up with kind of a avatar and how people might find us and ask us for help, a bit like the A-Team or something like that. How are people going to contact us in cyberspace? So on my tabletop here, I've already done that, but you could just sketch these out in your paper manifestos, but for the purpose of the demo I thought I'd get this cool board up. So this here is my call sign, my avatar that people will recognize in cyberspace, this clenched fist returning power to the people now that we've decided that. And perhaps you could click on that in cyberspace to get in contact with me. And my hacker's name is just the mysterious A. So we're going to call my hacker A, and that's it. So we are going to create a hack. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use Microsoft Whiteboard to help me draw up and create my hacks. But if you're using pen and paper, you would be using your pen or your pencils or whatever medium you like to draw in to draw out your hacks. So we begin by rolling on the code block table. And in Hacks in the Dark there are 20 code blocks, so we begin by rolling a d20 and seeing which one we are going to use. So grab my handy d20 and I have rolled 18. So let me have a look in the rulebook and see what 18 is. So 18 is this one here. So I'm going to grab this one and place that as my first code block. Now I've got my code block, we need to define what it does. So we roll on the effects table. So let me get the effects table. So again, we grab our D20 and see what effects, what this hack, oh, we got a 1. Let's see what this hack can actually do. Control, number 1 on the effects table is control. So what we do is we write control next to it to remind us that that's what this hack can do, and write control. So now I know that this part of the hack has got something to do with control, and you would write that on the effects table as well. On the code block, you'd write that next to the code block in your rule book to remind you that whenever you roll that code block again, that's what it does. Now I want this to be a hack, and it won't work unless we complete the loop, which means all 4 sides of this grid, of this square, need to be completed to do that. So we keep rolling until we've got enough for our hack, and this is just going to be a simple hack, so it's going to just be 1 code loop, 1 square. So let's keep rolling and see what we come up with. So I'm going to get my code block list in front of me, roll the D20. Now if I roll the same number again, that means there's been a trace upgrade. That means that's a consequence. That means my actions as a hacker have brought the attention of someone else. There's a trace on me, and the more times that happens, that's going to cause us complications, which I'll cover later. Grab my D20. See what I get this time. 14. So there we go. Let's make these a bit bigger so we can see them. That's better. 14. So if I go back to my rule book, let's see what 14 is. Okay. Drop that there. Let's turn it around a little bit. Zoom in. Pop that there. In between. But now we need to define what that is. So we go back to the rule book and roll on the effects table. So get my D20. Let's see what this part of the hack can do. 19. Okay, let's take a look at what 19 is. In my rule book, 19 is server. So this has got something to do with servers, and we'll role play this later when we figure out what that could be. Go back to here. Let's copy this, spin it around. Let's copy this, change it to server. And again, in the rulebook, next to that code block, we permanently set now this line of code, this code block, has something to do with servers. So let's speed this up a bit, get in the hang of it now. So let's roll this dice, see what the next code block to this hack is. Oh, come back, come back. A 1 now, that's interesting because we've had 1 before, haven't we? 1. Let's get my whiteboard back up. Oh no, we didn't. That's a different. We had 1 was the effect. We haven't had this code block before. Which is, let's zoom out, get our code blocks. see them all, is this one. Let's drag this one. Let's pop that here. I've almost completed the loop now. Let's enlarge it a bit so it fits. So I thought we were going to get a trace on us then. I thought we'd roll the same code block, but this is a different one. But we need to roll to see what effects this code block can do. So I get my effects table back up. Oh no, I've just realised for the last one, I looked at the wrong chart. That's the target. That's what one of the icebreakers can do. 19 was actually resize. This is what the code does, resize. So now let's roll to see the effect of this code. Oh, it's going off the table again. 4. So let's go back to the hack, back to my rulebook and see what number 4 is. Defend. So we're already telling a story here. This hack is somehow going to take control of something perhaps, and to do that maybe it has to resize something, or that's the effect we do afterwards. We're resizing something, and this maybe defends us from something. Maybe hack countermeasures. Maybe there's some ice here that we need to break, or maybe there's a trace after us, something that we need to defend ourselves against. So let's roll for the final code block. 15. Pop that in there. Shrink it a little bit. Let me shrink. Zoom in. Something like that. So let's roll the dice and see what effect we get for the code block. Come back. Oh, I believe that's a 20 on this dice, is it? I think so. Yes, it is, because there's the 1, so that's a 20. 20 is redirect. So let's write that down. There we go. Our code block is almost completed. So we know that our code loop is almost completed. So we know that this part of the code means control, this part means resize, this part means defend, and this part here means redirect. So all that's left to do now is to insert our icebreaker. So this is we roll on the target table for this to define. Well, first of all, we need to roll on the icebreaker table to see which symbol we're going to use. So again, I will use the D20. Is that a 5? 5 is that symbol. Okay, so let me get my whiteboard back up. Zoom out a bit. Let's take a look at the icebreakers, and number 5 is this one. So we drag that in there, pop that in the middle, make that a bit bigger. So remember, you'd be drawing these symbols, but we've got to define what that means now. So again, we consult our tables, and at the back of the rulebook is the target table. So let's find out what this hack is about to target. What our icebreaker can break through. What are we after? So let's roll a d20 again. Three is an avatar. So that's what this icebreaker, this hack can break through, or that's what it's going to target. So again, let's go to our whiteboard or our journal. Zoom in a little bit, and we would write that next to the icebreaker in the icebreaker table. So we know that if we roll that up again, that's the kind of thing that it will be targeting. There we go. So that is the hack complete. So we know that somehow it takes control of something. Perhaps it's going to resize something. It might defend us, or perhaps it breaks a defense. We could interpret that way. It's our story, it's our role play. Redirect, what does it redirect? Maybe sends security systems looking in a different direction. And perhaps the way in is through an avatar. Perhaps we've coaxed someone into to click on a pretty avatar or an attractive avatar on a chat forum, on a dating site, and they've clicked on that, and that's activated our hack. So now we know what this hack can do and what it targets. We need to name it. So I like the idea that it's some kind of dating site hack, and that's how it gets the victim gets into people's systems. They click on something they're attracted to. Oh yes, I've got a name for it: fatal attraction. So next we need to give it a description. So what can this do? So through duping unsuspecting lonely hearts, fatal attraction can take control. So it can take control, or redirect funds. So this is how we're going to fund our hacking. So take control of the victim's systems, resize. What could that mean? Maybe inflate their bank account. Are we being a bit of a Robin Hood here? Perhaps we can increase. Yeah, why don't we somehow let's say, well, it's my game. Let's it increases their cryptocurrency amount, and we skim some off for ourselves. We redirect some of those profits. So resize cryptocurrency balance, and redirects some funds to our account, a modern day Robin Hood. There we go. Now, so we've got our hack, Fatal Attraction, and we know what it can do now. So through duping unsuspecting lonely hearts, they click on the avatar. Fatal Attraction can take control of the victim's systems. Whoops, misspelled that. Systems, resize cryptocurrency balance. Ugh. This hacker can't spell. And redirect some funds to our account. A modern day Robin Hood. Now this is all well and good, but there's always a cost to these things. Well, there is in this game anyway. So once we've completed our code loop, we roll a d6 on what's called the trace routine table. And later hacks, as they get more and more complicated and we're reusing old lines of code that other hackers and defense systems might start to recognize, we're getting more and more traces. But on a simple hack like this, we just roll 1d6 on the trace routine table. So I'm going to get that up. And because we've only got one icebreaker here, we only roll once on the trace routine table. Now if we had multiple loops, that would increase the number of d6 we roll, but it would also increase the number of times we rolled on the trace routine table. Because we've got more icebreakers, we're making things more complicated, more effective, but we're also raising the chance of things going wrong for us being traced. Now there are 42 different trace routines, but we're only rolling 1d6 at the moment, so that makes you think, well, how am I going to access those others? Well, you will be rolling more d6 later, which will open up some of the more dangerous trace routines. So on a simple hack like this, we could only possibly roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 on the trace routines. And down at this end of the table, they're not quite as bad. They're going to affect people's lives and affect our lives and do some harm. But as the game progresses, they're going to get worse and worse. So let's go back to the game table. Grab my d6 and a 3. So I will consult the trace routine table. 3. A tourist gets in the way. Okay, so this is where more role playing comes in. So let's get my whiteboard, my manifesto back in. Let's copy this. So trace routine, tourist gets in the way. So what? Now this is our opportunity to role play a little bit here. So what does that actually mean? So what have we done? We've hacked some unsuspecting lonely heart. We've redirected funds to us, left them with an increased balance because we're trying to be a good person. It might not turn out that way towards the end, but we've started this with good intentions. Return power to the people, if you remember, is the need that we're trying to do. So a tourist gets in the way. So this represents that something's gone wrong, some kind of trace, something's happened, there's a consequence to this hack. A tourist gets in the way. perhaps the target is a tourist, or the tourist gets the blame. So perhaps there's a tourist in town. They're looking for some company. They're on this Lonely Hearts database, and suddenly their cryptocurrency balance has gone sky high. Maybe they think that's a bonus for visiting this part of the world. We're being very friendly in this city, when the true reality is being hacked, and this brings down the authorities on them. Perhaps they're currently in a cell somewhere, trying to explain how they've been on a spending spree around the city, and they're about to be deported. So there we go. That's the story. Fatal Attraction. That's the hack, and that's what it can do, and that's the consequences of that hack. Some poor tourist has got in the way and taken the blame. We thought we were doing something good. Maybe our hacker reads this in his news feed later that day or the day after, and is a bit mortified that this poor tourist has been on some crazy spending spree, maybe a night like from the film The Hangover. They've got up to all sorts of trouble spending all this cryptocurrency, and now they've got themselves into trouble with the authorities. So there we go. That's my first simple hack, playing Hacks in the Dark. And later videos will start doing multiple code loops, more complicated hacks, more icebreakers, but with more consequences, which are going to be much worse. I can guarantee that eventually, than a poor tourist getting into trouble with the authorities and spending lots of money having fun. Things are going to get much worse than that. So there we go.